In brightest day,
in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and today I think it's time for the entire comic book industry to admit DC Comics was right. They were right about basically all the things that they've done since the pandemic shutdown happened. And here with me to talk about that is my good friend over from Comics by Perch, the poobah of Thinking Critical. Perch, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I am doing excellent. And I just want to tell people before we get started, this is going to be a great video. So you can just give it a pre-thumbs up if you'd like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, you should certainly subscribe to Thinking Critical. If you're new to the channel, take a look around. I think you're going to like what you see, and you're definitely going to want to subscribe. And if you enjoy Perch, who has a great channel of his own, you're going to have 3 opportunities to subscribe to Comics by Perch. There's going to be a link in the video description. At the 1 minute mark, there would have been an icon to where you can go to his channel and subscribe. And in the last 30 seconds, there will be another even bigger icon, so you can go subscribe to Comics by Perch. And I definitely highly suggest that as well.
Well, I really thank you very much for that. And like always, it's great to talk to you. And I think we have a fun topic to talk about today.
Yes, it appears that people are coming around that maybe DC Comics wasn't the big bad villain in all of this, that maybe they were seeing things for what they really were and were taking action. And just recently, there was an article at Bleeding Cool that if you look at it, it looks like it's Rich Johnston talking about his comic shop, which I find highly improbable that he would be working with Lunar and UCS. I believe he's in England. So I believe this is the weekly article that Rod Lamberti from Rodman Comics in Iowa actually wrote, but for some reason it didn't have the normal header. So I'm going to assume that's his shop and him speaking on this one. And this is what he had to say about DC Comics. If not for DC, we would be in a world of hurt for lack of in-demand comics to actually sell. We have been lucky to be able to sell DC Comics on Tuesday. It gained us new customers. We managed to provide a new service for those who wanted it. Boom.
Yeah, and that story is pretty consistent across a number of retailers right now. So for all the hand-waving about this was killing the industry, this was bad, retailer outrage, all the rest, it really seems to come down to the retailers that had maybe sweetheart deals or special things or were afraid of change. And I can appreciate that last one. They're now seeing that this turned out to not be a bad thing. Or maybe they were a little bit too quick to jump the gun and saying it was what was it, sociopathic apocalyptic behavior out of DC. Seems like it's turning out okay.
Yes, apparently DC were not murdering the industry, and everyone was equally upset about New Comics Tuesday. DC is shaking the things up. We're not going to have the advantage of selling graphic novels and trades a week, basically a week before their competition. It turns out opening up and having new comics a day early has brought more people in, and customers really like having an option to come in on Tuesday, and get their comics a day early.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this was a weird one always for people to get all upset about. I mean, I get from a store perspective, it's frustrating to need to kind of change around your routine. I get that completely, especially if you have a staff and you're trying to do other things. It can be strange. But in terms of selling comics early, I mean, the strange part is when we've had events and kind of midnight sales and other things, many comic retailers in the past complained about not being able to sell early when they were able to. So for suddenly Wednesday to become kind of a key day, and then I think Marvel put a bow on it with that Wednesday cover variant scheme bit that they did that just flopped hard. Most people are looking at this and saying, hey, a day early, people are coming into the store. Maybe people are now coming in twice on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting people into the store.
He did go on to talk about Lunar Distributors. Obviously, he's working with them rather than UCS. And this is what he had to say about their service, which, of course, DC played a huge part in bringing to the industry. For us, the shipments between Lunar and Diamond are roughly the same number of comics. Our Diamond shipment this week had 19 comics damage. Lunar, in the entire time we've been using them, has had no damages or shortages. The naysayers were saying DC's new vendors would be a repeat of Marvel's failed Heroes World vendor adventure, but so far, Diamond is much closer to being like Heroes World.
Yeah, you're hearing, well, and we'll talk about UCS in a moment, but at least with Lunar, the majority of the of the reviews have been positive. There's been very, very little negative. Now, there's some people have had little issues here and there, but nothing substantial. And the one consistent comment I've kept getting is that the quality is high. The books are arriving correct, the right amount, not damaged, in good shape. And for all the other complaints or praise, either direction, those, getting your comics, what you ordered in a good condition to sell them is at the end of the day the most important thing. So if those two boxes are checked, the rest maybe doesn't even matter as much if things are coming in on time, right amount, in good shape. So Lunar is definitely doing a good job. And then Diamond seems to have increased, or either people are saying it more publicly now, or they've actually gotten worse in terms of there's been more reports of damaged comics, more reports of shorted orders. And kind of on top of that, I think we'll get to in a moment, the when you try and go to Diamond, you're getting worse service now.
We are going to talk about that here in a moment, but we got to be honest here. When are some of the other publishers kind of come to their senses and be like, why am I sticking with Diamond when I could go over to Lunar and UCS? They've certainly proven themselves in a pretty short amount of time that they're viable competition in the market. They're providing a better service. I don't want my comics books to be damaged. I want my customers to be able to get them on the first day they're available. With Diamond, it's kind of a crapshoot. Sometimes they do. Most of the time they do, but there's a lot of shortages, a lot of damages. When are some of these other publishers going to say "fuck it" and kind of start looking to Lunar and UCS?
I mean, it's inevitable. I think we've heard that smaller companies are doing this, but I also think that there's there's almost a timidness on the part of the other publishers that nobody wants to be this next company. They watch DC take a lot of hits. They watch DC largely ignore it and just plow ahead for it anyway. And DC is big enough that they can do that. Same with Marvel. But for a lot of the smaller companies, I think they're worried that creators will rebel, that they'll get the outrage that you can't do this to us. Why are you doing it? To protect the status quo. So I think there's a hesitancy there to pull the trigger, but it's becoming inevitable. I think we've seen now, we're seeing some proof, and I think in about a month we'll see some actual financial proof that DC, not waiting, getting comics out there, getting the comics out early is proving to be a market advantage. And if you're a small company, if you're a publisher, you really have no choice but to look at this seriously. And I think we will see some move over. But I mean, if I'm a small publisher at this point, I would be absolutely moving.
Yeah, I can't wait for the day to maybe Marvel offers their comics through two different services. If you want to pay a little bit higher shipping cost, you can go for the Lunar or UCS. It costs a little bit more, but your comics are going to come in better shape. You're not going to get shortages. If you want a bit more of a discounted service, you can go over to Diamond and kind of take your chances there. And that way the retailers have choice, and have a little competition, because it sounds like it's almost two different services right now.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that it's. I mean, competition is healthy just in general. A lot of people kind of go back and forth on that, but when you have more than one entity, it pushes people to do better, and I think it's healthy for the industry to have multiple distributors, even if it's a pain, even if it's a change to some people. And I'm not just hand waving it. This can help drive better behavior. And I think that Diamond has some questions that they've got to answer. I mean, there's still overall questions about their financial viability, whatever Steve Geppi says. And I think they've got to figure out, how they're going to play this market. I don't think Diamond wants to be kind of the cheaper discount version where it's a crapshoot with how you get your titles. I don't think anybody would set out to be that company. But Diamond is finding themselves slipping into that territory. And if this continues for a couple more months, that reputation is going to stick hard to them. And then it's going to have a very hard time, a very expensive time getting it back.
Yeah, it's I can't wait for some other publishers to kind of take the leap and follow DC's lead, because it feels like they've been right on the money. And here's another comment that he made about Diamond that you alluded to earlier. I found this one mind-boggling. I just found out this week my sales rep I have dealt with for years is still with Diamond. This shocked the heck out of me after so many unanswered emails. I received an email telling me to send emails to a generic Diamond account instead. So he has a Diamond rep. He's still there. He's not answering them. And the feedback that he got was, go send it to this generic account rather than dealing with the person that is supposed to be responsible for your customer service.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah, I mean, across the board, you're seeing a lot of retailers complaining that they're not getting answers from the rep. In many cases, unless they had a personal friend relationship, and there are some of those, they're not getting answers. If they had any kind of more, I would say, business-like relationship, mails are going unanswered, issues are not getting addressed, and there's this. And I got a mail, and I don't have an active account right now, so I don't know how and why I got a mail. That's confusing as well. So it just there's confusing reports coming out of Diamond right now, and with there being some problems and some struggles, the last thing you want to do is go silent and not get information. That just accelerates people's lack of trust in you. So if anything, Diamond should be doing the exact opposite. They should be more responsive, trying to get back in touch with people and fix these problems, because on the retailer side, you do have some angry people. There's some initial outrage that felt like, I think, support for the company, but that is waning fast. And on the publisher side, it's DC is taking it away in terms of money. So if you're Diamond, it's red alert at this point. You're quickly sinking, and the worst thing you can do is go silent.
We know Steve Geppi recently kind of fired the president of Geppi Family Enterprises, took that role back over. Has anyone seen any differences? Are we expecting anything different with him at the helm?
It's hard to say. I mean, he's made a lot of promises that he's going to, lean into this and really help set the ship straight and give confidence to everyone. The challenge is in, these first couple of weeks, at least, the opposite is happening. It's a lot of confusion over who still works there, where your rep is, if emails not getting answered, shipments coming in damaged. And so it's his stated goal, and really a stated goal of any CEO or president, is to provide confidence in the business. They're the masthead. They're the leader. They're the person you're supposed to say they've got their hand on the wheel. And the all signs right now are pointing to the opposite. It's pointing to a company that's flailing. So Steve Geppi, he does need to very rapidly come in and show, maybe the tour that he went on kind of before they reopened, now's the time to do that. Get the information out there, start talking to people, start reaching out to retailers proactively. Don't leave all this stuff to be a mystery. I mean, several retailers are also closing kind of without notice as well. So overall, this is it's a confusing time, and it's not a good time for a passive form of leadership. And the back to comeback campaign is just that's nothing. It's not as bad as the Wednesday variant covers, but it's nothing.
Well, speaking of Marvel and their Wednesday variant covers, Rod Lamberti was not very impressed with that campaign, and nor were his customers. And this is what he had to say about Marvel and all this: the distinguished competition of DC Comics. Marvel has been less than helpful. People come in here and ask when they are finally going to be able to buy the Marvel titles that they've been following and are disappointed by the answer. Titles such as Savage Avengers, last released issue number 11 on March 11th. Issue 12 isn't due until September 30th. Too much of a gap between issues. Again, DC Comics didn't really go pencils down. They kind of went full bore ahead and started kind of expanding out, seeing we need to have reasons for people to get back in shops. We need to have big buzzworthy titles. And Marvel kind of decided to take a step back, and I think it's really biting them in the ass.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Marvel took a wait and see attitude, and they trusted, I think, that they could kind of jump right back into the driver's seat when things were moving again. That they had some events and some comics that were hot to save them. But I think what they're seeing, and at least as the sales numbers are reflecting, we'll get full numbers here shortly. Empyre was not a strong event. We knew that. The Ten of Swords event looks promising, but it's a lot of titles, and I think there is at least some signs of exhaustion. We've seen some backing off of certainly the extended family of titles there, and there is a lot of excitement for King in Black, but that's in December, and so that's a long way. I mean, that's just basically handing DC kind of free reins to carve out this marketplace over the next 5 months, and death metal, whether you like it or not, as a title, and I'm sort of mixed on it. It is burning charts up. It's selling really, really well, along with Joker War and some of these other things. It feels like DC had a stumble with the shutdown, but they quickly recovered, and they went very aggressively to get back up to speed and get comics publishing again. It feels like DC's back to normal. And Marvel still very much feels like they're feeling it out. It's very unclear what titles are, they canceled some and then they brought them back, and some went digital only, and then they said they're going to print. And it still feels like Marvel's trying to figure out their strategy. And every month it takes them to do that, it's just another month where DC has control.
All right, Perch, we haven't really seen a sustained period of DC dominance in the comic book industry for a very long time. Obviously, when New 52 hit, they were the number one publisher for a period. When DC Comics Rebirth hit, they were the number one publisher for a period. Do you think with everything that they've done and the foresight that they've had to kind of gauge the market and try and get ahead of it and kind of beat Marvel to the punch and really have things there for customers, is this going to actually lead to maybe DC being the market leader for a period of time, like a prolonged period of time? Has Marvel, taken their foot off the gas and letting DC get to the market first, give them that opportunity? Or do you think Marvel's, character list and the MCU are going to power them back into the front once they get up to kind of full capacity when we get to like September?
Well, I think the safe money, and maybe people don't want to hear this, but if you're a betting man, the safe money is that Marvel will regain control of all this. King in Black does have strong attention. A lot of their titles, carry interest, and the MCU ties do matter. And when those movies start popping back in the theaters again, it is going to help overall, just kind of what Marvel does. However, there is a moment here, and the moment really, and what everybody to look for, and we've talked about it, I think, many times in the past with what was going to be G5 and other events. What happens after Death Metal? What does the scape of DC look like after that event finishes in January and February? And so the timing for DC is really around November, maybe probably around November. DC needs to start raising the curtain on what this new world is going to look like. The worst decision DC could make is keep things completely secret until Death Metal is over and then kind of spring it on everybody all at once. They need to build excitement, sustained excitement from kind of late October, November, December. As that event rolls out, here's the DC of the future. Here's what you can expect. Here's kind of the titles to get really excited about, some of the creative teams we've got. If they can do that, then they'll be building on their momentum. It will feel like just a continual charging ahead. And if people like what they see, kind of like what we saw with Rebirth and other things, then I think DC can keep it for all of through 2021. King in Black is going to be a tough one to overcome. That is going to have a ton of interest. It's got a creative team people like. They've been building to it, so that one's going to be tough for DC to overcome. But if they play their cards right, and if they really kind of define this new world and do a really good job of it, I think they can. So hopefully DC's got some market strategists, some people really understanding kind of what their market wants and are ready to race.
And if anybody important at DC watches this video, and that might actually happen, here's a hint: do not wait on this, because you do have leaks in your publishing house, and it's going to end up bleeding cool, and it's going to be half truths and misinformation, and they're going to make you kind of look stupid. So I would make sure that you're out in front of this, putting your best foot forward, and definitely getting the real story out first, because you let some of these hack sites get a hold of it, and they're going to put the wrong information out.
They will, and then you're going to spend all of your effort trying to correct, what was eventually bad information that you never intended. And I think DC has had you're right. They do have some leaks in there. They have some people that put some things out that are inaccurate. They also have some news sites that kind of know that they're putting out inaccurate things, but they spin it in such a way for drama or for clicks or to appeal to a different group, or maybe even to try and influence a company to move in a direction they want to go in, which I think we've seen in the past. I think a lot of 5G was almost wishful thinking on the part of some people. But I think that, DC has the opportunity here. I think they need to be aggressive. I think they need to be talking to, people who really kind of care about the business and know what they do. And I think they can do really well.
Well, Perch, I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Always happy to talk to you.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.